Good morning, friends. This is Tony from Historic American Homes. Our next video here on our lovely French Chateau-inspired house design is going to look at fireplaces. So what we're going to look at first is what our options are. And I will start with the good old building code. International Residential Code, IRC. This is the 2018 edition, Chapter 10. You'll want to familiarize yourself with the contents of Chapter 10 if you plan on having a fireplace. You'll find lots of information about traditional masonry fireplaces in that chapter, which is absolute must if you plan to go down the route of a masonry fireplace. But even if you don't and you want to do one of the other alternatives, I still recommend that you read through Chapter 10. Among the alternatives, well, masonry alternatives, there are companies like Earthcore that makes a line called Isokern. These are masonry fireplaces, wood-burning fireplaces, but instead of being built brick by brick, the old-fashioned way, they're essentially kits. And here's their specification page for one of their fireplaces. You see we have a plan view here. The entire side is one piece, the entire back is one piece. And so that's one route to go with masonry fireplace that's quite efficient. We have, if you do it brick by brick, there are loads of resources out there. Of course, Fine Home Building is a great resource. This design is built up using a Rumford approach. The Rumford fireplace has different proportions. It tends to be shallower and have more steeply angled sides and a sloped back. It's intended to reflect more heat directly into the room. They're supposed to be quite a bit more effective than the traditional masonry designs. Anyway, that's another alternative. Rumford.com is a great place to go for a lot more detail on Rumford fireplaces. And then another approach is your wood stove. This is Woodstock Soapstone Company. They incorporate soapstone panels into their wood stoves. They're quite beautiful, and the soapstone panels have the advantage of absorbing a lot of heat from the fire, so that once the fire is out, the soapstone panels continue to radiate warmth into the room for quite a long time afterwards. That's another approach that's available. All of these approaches, I strongly recommend that if you're doing a design for your own home, well, check with your building department first and find out whether you can even have a fireplace that burns what they call solid fuel, like wood, because a lot of jurisdictions don't even allow wood-burning fireplaces anymore. So that's something you're going to need to check. And then once you've done that and settled on whether you're going to have a wood-burning fireplace or a gas fireplace, then I would encourage you to do your research and pick a model that you can get locally and that you can get the technical details from it, and then design with that particular model in mind, because you're going to want to refer to the manufacturer's requirements as far as things like, in particular, clearances. So for example, Woodstock Soapstone Company, this model fireplace here, they have a sheet, specification sheet that shows all the information regarding clearances, the minimum space behind, the maximum space behind, maximum height of the chimney, clearances to combustible surfaces around the fireplace. So these are all dimensions that are really important to keep in mind from the start. And you're also going to need, in many cases, you're going to need a hearth, a non-combustible hearth. And that may have a minimum dimension each side and in front of the fireplace. So that stuff you should really have on hand as you're doing your design. The wood stove option works quite nicely as a very efficient approach for a very traditional, like early American style, colonial Cape Cod. These stoves, this is an article from Old House Online. These wood stoves can be made to look like an insert into an old brick fireplace, where if you're building a new house, you can easily create this effect of there being an old brick fireplace, whereas in fact it's just some brick put up against the wall and is not really a big old brick fireplace, doesn't need to have a massive foundation under it, and then you put a wood stove up against it and you've got yourself a very traditional looking effect without the cost of a big massive masonry chimney and fireplace in the middle of your home. There are other options that are interesting as well. The ceramic stove is something like our traditional American wood stove, but instead of being made of cast iron, these are made of clay or ceramic, and they have the advantage of being able to hold a lot of heat. Just like the soapstone panels in the wood stove we looked at earlier, they absorb a lot of the heat from the fire and then continue to radiate that warmth into the room long after the fire has gone out. These are found all over Scandinavia, other parts of Northern Europe as well, and they are available in the United States. They are really beautiful. This is a very traditional style, of course, this one here. This particular company also makes some very contemporary looking designs. The chateau that we're modeling our design after, La Lanterne in Versailles, I'm going to bring up a couple of pictures because it uses a ceramic stove in one of the rooms. The dining room has a ceramic stove set against a small alcove, a semicircular alcove. That's quite an attractive design, I think. I'm going to look into that possibility a little bit more before I make a final decision about these designs. But the other fireplace in La Lanterne, I should say one of the other fireplaces, is a very traditional masonry fireplace with a beautiful stone mantle surround. That's definitely the approach I'm going to take for the main fireplace, the fireplace that's in the living room. But I'm not going to be using a masonry fireplace. And the reason is because so many jurisdictions have banned wood-burning fireplaces that it's just not practical for me to offer that option as the standard in a stock plan, in a stock house plan. So in all my stock house plans, I'm putting in gas fireplaces. They are very efficient. They're very good heat sources for a house. They really are functional pieces of equipment. They're not just there to look pretty and make a nice little flame in the evening. So there's a lot of value to be had from these gas fireplaces. If you go with one of the major manufacturers, you've got something that's going to be reliable and also very efficient heat source for your home. They can be the primary heat source for a small home that's centrally organized. There's no reason not to consider them as being both an amenity and practical. So I am doing this design using the Heirloom Series 36-inch fireplace from Heatolator, and I've used their technical material to build a model based on all the dimensions for the 36-inch fireplace. 36 inches is a good size. It's more than adequate to heat a medium-sized room, and it will also be a nice supplement in a large room. So that's generally the one I use. Larger fireplaces are certainly available. So there's the fireplace component that I've created. I like the Heirloom series from Heatolator. I like Heatolator because their website's very easy to use and they've got a lot of technical documentation. I like the Heirloom series because it has a very minimal amount of stuff on the front of it so that the focus really is still on the firebox. It does have a piece of glass separating the fire from the room. This is pretty much a necessity. There's no way really to get around that anymore. But at least the front of it is minimal in terms of clutter. So what I'm doing with this fireplace is I've got the piece already made up. I have it in a separate file that I just copy in here when I need it. And then I can move it around and figure out where I need to put it in the space or where I want to put it in the space. And when I started working on this one, I had originally assumed it would go against the wall between the living room and the entry hall. The reason for that was that I had made the entry hall where you come through the front door, and to your left there's a small coat closet, to your right the door to the family room. Straight ahead there are two openings that lead on the right to the dining room and on the left to the living room. And I wanted these walls to appear to be thick walls because this is a chateau and it should have thick walls. So I made these about 2 feet thick, 1 foot 7 inches thick. And the idea was to use a little bit of that space for other purposes. So for example, I've tucked another little closet here next to the door that leads to the garden. It's a place where a few items could be stored, like a umbrella for the terrace or some outdoor folding garden chairs. In the dining room, those same spaces that are left over from that thick wall can serve as built-in china cabinets, which I haven't designed in yet, but the space is there for them. And then the result of all of that was that I had this space left here. I had this space left here on the wall between the living room and the entry hall that formed a sort of alcove. Imagine there's no fireplace here. It was just a kind of alcove. And I thought, well, that's just asking for a fireplace. That's where I should put it. It just will fit in there very nicely against there. However, that really wasn't where I wanted it. And the reason why I didn't really want it there was that I like the idea that when you come in the front door, you're going to be seeing straight ahead to the door that leads to the garden. And there are these two openings on either side, living room and dining room. So they're drawing you forward. All of this is drawing you forward through the entry hall. And when you get to that space between those two openings, you have a vista opening on either side of you. And on the left side, the living room, that vista would have been opening up against a blank wall. The end of your view would be a blank wall. And that seemed to me to be where we really ought to have the fireplace, the focal point of the room, so that when you come from the entry, you move through the entry hall towards the back of the entry hall facing the garden, drawn that direction by the view of the garden through that back door. And then you get to the cross axis and you look to your left and there's this wall with a fireplace. It seemed like a really natural and right way to organize the space. So instead of putting the fireplace against this wall on the right, I decided it's better to have it on the left. So I am going to be deleting this and moving it back to, in fact, I'll do that right now while we're here. You can watch me work. I'm going to restore this wall to its previous arrangement. And so that's how it was before I put the fireplace there. So it'll still be some kind of an alcove, and it might be a place where a built-in bookcase could go, but I'm going to just leave it as an alcove. It might also be a spot where somebody could put something like an antique highboy, some special heirloom furniture. And then opposite that, we're going to have the fireplace wall. Now, for the moment, I've just simply framed out the wall minimum, the minimum we need in order to accommodate the fireplace with the proper clearance. However, we've got this odd little spot left here on the end and on the left end, and we've got an indentation on the right end. I don't want that. I don't want those kinds of irregularities in the wall. So I am going to end up making this a solid wall. In fact, I'll do that while we're looking at this. And there will be definitely ways that these spaces can be used. In fact, I will share with you the ideas I have once I've got this in. On this side, on the right side, we will probably do something like we had done before at the entry hall and have the effect of it being a wider opening. Okay, I went ahead and remodeled that wall to make the little changes that I was just talking about. I didn't feel it was necessary to show all that, make you sit through it all. But as you can see, what the result will be a nice wall surface that will allow me to wrap a cornice trim around the room neatly. The space above this opening where the door is will accommodate the cornice running straight across, so it doesn't have lots of ins and outs. In a classical design like this, you don't want lots of ins and outs. You want to stick to basic rectangles. So I will design out the details of all of these interiors in the next video. But I wanted the focus here was on the fireplace and on keeping in mind how it's going to interface with those interior details in the next stage. So back to the fireplace here. Once I established I wanted to have the fireplace on that wall. That wall, on the other side of that wall, is the study, library study adjacent to the master bedroom. And I thought, well, if I've got a fireplace in that wall already, I can have a second one for the study. Now, one of the options, of course, is a back-to-back fireplace where it's open on both sides. Let me see if I've got the Heatilator page for that. Well, they have that on Heatilator. You'll find fireplaces, let's see, gas. See if we can pull it up. Style. Type. Multi-sided, see-through, or single-sided. These multi-sided and see-through fireplaces are quite fun and can be really a nice choice for a lot of houses, but they really aren't traditional and I don't think would be appropriate in a chateau. So I'm going with the single-sided. However, if this were a more contemporary type of design, I might consider a see-through fireplace here. There's also an issue of privacy. This room basically is part of the master bedroom suite in essence. So this preserves a little more privacy. So I've got both fireplaces in there now. However, I'm going to look into the possibility of replacing the one in the study with one of those beautiful Scandinavian type ceramic fireplaces, in which case I would create an alcove and set the fireplace in the alcove. But I'll show you what I've got with the two fireplaces as it stands at this point. When I put them in here, you need to keep in mind where the flue is going to go. So a lot of these fireplaces, you can actually take the flue sideways, horizontally, away from the fireplace and exit through a wall with a vent on the wall. Now, that is fine, especially if it's a more contemporary design, but we don't want to have a fireplace vent sticking out of the wall right here. That would just look god-awful on this house. I'm going to mention, while I'm on this topic, go back to my channel, on my YouTube channel here. I have other videos on which I've talked about fireplaces, and in particular I want to mention this one, these two, Creating a Small Home Inspired by Mid-Century Modern Design, parts 9 and 10. On that design, I did use a fireplace that has the option of venting out the side or the top, and I discussed the options for that and why I went the route I did on those videos. So you'll want to check those out if you want more on fireplaces. But back to this, we had the issue of the chimneys. So these fireplaces being on the first floor meant the chimneys have to go up through the roof to the second floor. Now I'm going to turn the second floor off here so you can see down. What we have is downstairs on the ground floor, on the first floor, we have a fireplace here and another one behind it facing the study, and the chimneys are going to come up And if I just carry the chimney straight up, they're going to be coming up through the floor of this bedroom. I've left one of them so you can see it. This is where it is, coming up right in the middle of the bedroom. Terrible spot for a chimney. So what I have to do is find a way to route the chimneys over from here over to the right a little bit, over to here. And while I'm on the subject of chimneys, when I still had the old fireplace location on the right side of the room, next to where the piano is here, I had brought the chimney up in the corner here, thinking that you come up the stairs, this is basically the hallway, and this is an optional bedroom space. I've indicated dashed lines where the walls could go. So it kind of fits well if people go with the option, and it does not, and it also divides the upstairs play space, study, children's study area from the passage. So with the old option, the old fireplace location, I had a solution for the chimney. Now I can get rid of that. In fact, I'll do that right now. That will go away, and I'll clean that corner up later. But to resolve the chimneys for the new fireplace location, what I had to do was angle the chimneys. Now, one of the advantages of a gas fireplace over a masonry fireplace is that you've got quite a bit more freedom about how you run your flues. So use that, take advantage of it. I have angled the flues. Well, there are limitations, of course, and you'll need to be aware of the limitations if you want to follow this route. There's only so many bends that you can have and only so much complete angle total. So I have a bend, I have the flue coming up and then bending and then coming up again, and then a right angle bend in the space where the floor framing is. There's the top of the wall of the first floor, there's the bottom of the wall of the second floor, and this gap is where the floor framing is. We have 14-inch floor framing, so the flue will pass through that floor framing area to the other side of the wall, and then from there to continue straight up through the roof. So this one here can go now. I don't need it anymore. That was the original location coming straight up from the chimney. Don't need that anymore. I've found a way to route my flue up through the roof. Now I'm going to turn the roof back on and mention one more item. The top of the flue needs to be at a minimum 2 feet higher than any surface 10 feet away from it horizontally. So if I just brought this down here, say, pretend that's the top of our chimney, you can see that it's higher than the ridge of the house, but it's not 2 feet higher. That's a code issue to be aware of. I've pulled it quite a bit up above that, quite a few feet above it at this point, but I'm going to adjust the heights of these once I've finalized the design of the exterior for the chimney. Okay, that's a whole lot of material, and I don't want to make this any longer than necessary, so I'll leave it there. I'll put links to the other videos in the description and in a pinned comment. If you've got questions about fireplaces, please do leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not an expert on fireplaces, but I can at least help point you in the right direction. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click the like button and subscribe. I'm always eager to get comments from people. So have a great day. See you again soon. Bye-bye.